If you want to pump your body and expand your mind, there's only one place to go. Mind Pump. Mind Pump with your hosts, Sal DiStefano, Adam Schaefer, and Justin Andrews.
In this super duper brand new episode.
Ooh, smells new.
Of Mind Pump. For the first 40 minutes, we kind of have some fun conversation. We don't talk a whole lot about fitness, but we do have fun, and then we get into the fitness part of this episode. So here's what we talked about in that first part of this episode. We start out by talking about pickup lines and multiple personalities. That's right, they do go together. Find out how we make the connection in this that part of this episode.
Use Rico Suave, that guy.
Then we talked about Kettle and Fire, our new sponsor. They make organic bone broths, my favorites. And they also have food products like they had chili, organic chili that I had over the weekend. I put it over rice. Great macro breakdown. Very delicious, all organic and grass-fed. And we got you guys a hookup. If you go to kettleandfire.com/mindpump, you'll get 15% off all products and free shipping if you buy 6 or more cartons of their product. Then we talked about ButcherBox. ButcherBox delivers to your door grass-fed, high-quality meats at amazing prices. In fact, if you use our link, you get an additional discount. Here's what you do. Go to butcherbox.com/mindpump, and you'll get $20 off and 2 pounds of wild Alaskan sockeye salmon between May 1st and May 15th. Yum.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about training for your circadian rhythm. I talked about my son's volleyball game and their undefeated season. Boom, take that, all the other schools.
Suck it.
We talked about gratitude for adversity and the growth it brings. Adam drops some wisdom nuggets in that part of this episode. Does that make sense?
Wisdom nuggets.
It works.
You're using my nugget term.
Yeah. Then we got into the fitness part of this episode. The first fitness question, this person is fallen in love with working out with weights, but they find it boring to train biceps. That's right. Some people don't like to train biceps. We give some advice how you can make your bicep training fun and more effective.
Start doing it in the squat rack.
The next fitness question, we talk a lot of crap about running. This person's like, hey man, can running be done effectively? Like, if so, how would one go about doing this? First off, we don't think running is stupid. We just think it's stupid for most people, and we tell you how to do it the right way in that part of this episode. The next question, if somebody's been in a prolonged calorie deficit, aka diet, and then they start to binge, how would that affect their metabolism? And the final question, we go over a typical day of eating. Very exciting. Justin loved that part of the episode.
One of the most boring sessions ever.
That's right. Also, it's May. You know what that means, boys?
Yeah.
Summer is around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
And when summer is around the corner, people start thinking about looking sexy with their clothes off. They want to look good with their shirt off, with their bikinis on. This usually means they got to get lean, and they want to get lean a little bit faster than they normally do.
I want to look good naked.
Here's the deal. The best short-term fat-burning program that we have is our MAPS HIT program, and we're making it 50% off. Half off for everybody to help you get ready for summer. So what we've done in the MAPS HIT program was we've put together different HIT-style workouts, high-intensity interval training with barbells and dumbbells, programmed and done right. These workouts are short, but they are hard. They burn a shit ton of body fat and calories, and now it's 50% off. Here's what you got to do. Go to MAPS HIT, MAPSHIIT, there's 2 I's in there, .com, and use the code HIT50, HIIT50, no space, for the discount. Get ready for summer. Get MAPS HIT. It's half off. Did I ever tell you about the best pickup line I've ever heard in my entire life?
Say it.
It's
say it.
It's not really.
Wait. Okay, I'm the girl. All right.
It's not really that good.
Yeah.
Hey, how's it going?
It's not really that good.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Pretend on Justin.
Yeah, we
Just
do a
right
good
here,
job.
right here. Yeah, pretend on Justin.
So I saw my brother do this once years ago, and I thought it's not actually good. But anyway, this is what he did, right? So Justin's the girl.
Well, so far I'm drying up.
Yeah. Hey, how you doing? Look, my friend over there wants to know if you think I'm hot.
Wow.
Boom.
Yeah.
Boom.
I'm sold.
I fell on the floor laughing the first time I heard him say that. I thought that was great.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it worked. It actually worked.
Did it?
Yeah, I actually got the girl's phone number. But this one, he was He was
Dude,
like
lines
20.
never work.
He was like 21. So
Yeah.
that's when the girl's like, oh my god, you're so corny.
Yeah.
And cute, But
Clever.
It's the follow-up.
try doing that later on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Try being like a 35-year-old guy. Excuse me, miss. My friend over there wants to know if you think I'm hot.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there's
She'd
no
be
friend
like-
standing behind you.
Yeah. She's like, what friend?
Oh, he's
Yeah,
over there.
she's
Oh,
like-
my God.
I
He
lied.
does this every time.
Yeah, I lied.
Yeah. He set me up.
Yeah, I have two personalities.
Yeah.
My other personality wants to know.
That'll go real good. You know what's even scary when she goes like, I would love to.
She's like, here's some medication. Yeah.
Dude, have you guys ever watched documentaries and stuff on multiple personality disorders?
No.
I can't say I have.
It's fucking scary.
I saw the movie Multiplicity.
Yeah, I saw Split.
What I don't know what those
You
are.
don't know Split?
No.
That was the M. Night Shyamalan guy that did...
Shamalalala.
Who knows how to say his name?
Yeah, it was the guy that... I mean, he had like...
I heard that was a good movie.
Yeah, like 20 different people that like he characterized. It was pretty great. Actually, the acting was great.
It is. It's so fascinating to me because it highlights the just incredible complexity of the human psyche and ego. Like people under extreme duress, because that's usually what happens, right? They're abused or something terrible.
Yeah.
And they develop different personas to deal with different things. So,
Is that what's most common?
what do you mean?
That you said that they're normally abused or something's happened to them that's
Yeah,
caused the
I would
split
think so.
personalities?
Yeah, from what I've read, I'm not by any means an expert. So just if you're listening right now, I'm not an expert on this. But I did read. I have, but I did stay at it. What's that one?
Yeah,
called?
stay at Holiday Inn.
No, but what I've read is that when they're like, let's say they're being abused terribly, they'll develop a different personality so that they don't have to experience it.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, no, it's that other person that is being abused. And so they develop all these different personalities, and you end up with like one that remains a child. So this adult will have like one that's like a 5-year-old, or they'll develop a personality that's angry and aggressive, and another one that's kind of sneaky, and then one. And very often they will know about each other. Yeah. So they'll be like, oh, I'm afraid of John. When John comes out or whatever. Really fucking weird.
Yeah, that movie
man.
Split did a pretty good job of that. Like,
Did they show all that?
Yeah, they'd have like the little kid that was like scared of like the beast, and then the beast is basically the embodiment of like all of this like power and rage and all this stuff that like protects everybody else, and this legion of different personalities inside. It was crazy.
It's just so weird, right? It just goes to show you like we have this ego that we create, like all of it, and I don't know, man. It's trippy.
What did Jim Quick say about kids and their inner voices? I've been trying to remember that line forever. Like I know what the premise of it was, but I can't remember.
All I remember is Jim Quick would say something and then say it in reverse, and everybody would be like,
That's the move, dude. Yeah.
yeah.
If you want to be a prophet,
Yeah. Never count your chickens before they hatch. But what I like to say is,
Hatch
you count
your chickens.
count your chickens before they hatch. And everyone's like, oh shit, that's a crazy.
No,
song.
you don't.
my
You don't remember that
God.
line about be careful of your external voices because they become kids.
Oh, be careful of your internal voice. Because
No,
or the other way around.
Be careful of something because it becomes the kid's internal voice.
Yeah.
So or internal thoughts, right? Something like that. I can't remember what he said.
It's probably the same thing. Internal voice thoughts.
I'm confused.
Hey,
You don't remember that?
No.
it was Jim.
It's like
You don't remember
external
that?
voices because it becomes their internal voices.
Yeah,
something like
it's
that.
it's such an incredible point because I think a
yeah.
lot of people.
He also taught us memory stuff. We're all forgetting what he said.
It really worked.
Yeah, I still.
Well, we're not Will Smith.
I still remember the avocado, eggs, and salmon and leafy green. I remember all 10 of those still.
Do you really?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
of course.
damn,
Yeah,
that's good.
you don't remember them?
No.
Oh, wow.
I just, like I said, I just remember the technique of taking something that people say that's common and reversing it. I did that last night to Jessica. I don't remember what she
I
said.
want to practice that.
And I reversed it, and then I did the mind blown.
You sound like a wizard to everybody else. Somehow. Yeah, that's the move.
I'm trying to think. What's another common saying? Like, what's a common
Right.
thing that people say? Can you guys think of anything?
The sun will come up
No.
tomorrow. I
Huh?
don't know. I just made that one up.
Ramp water.
I feel like
The
you're.
sun will come out tomorrow. It's like a song.
Yeah. Never look a gift horse in the mouth. But you know what I always say? You take that gift horse and you look him right in the mouth. You know what I mean? It just sounds like, oh my God.
I've never heard of that one before.
Mind
I
blown.
haven't heard that.
You never heard that before?
No.
Never bite the hand that feeds you.
There you go.
Yeah, there's one.
But what I like to say is you feed the hand that bites you.
You
something
feed
like that.
hand.
You know what I mean?
Weird.
And everybody's just like, Fuck.
That doesn't
crazy.
work.
This
You got to
guy's-
work on
this
that,
guy's-
dude.
Anyway, dude, you know what I took home yesterday?
What?
So Taylor's been working on this for a while now, and I'm excited because I've been wanting to talk about this new sponsor that we're going to work with.
I
that
know,
we're working
right?
with.
We should let our audience guess what brands did each of us influence Taylor on getting, and like which
That's
ones.
going to be obvious.
I know it is, right?
It's obvious.
Yeah.
So
Here's a Sal brand.
Yeah,
Coming your
Which
way.
one looks most like who?
Yeah, I've been wanting to work with Kettle and Fire for a long time because their bone broth is the best. It's the tastiest. It's great ingredients. Their packaging is smart, and now they have all these other products. Anyway, Taylor's been working with them, and they've agreed now to do like a pilot with us, and they sent a bunch of samples of some of their new stuff, and they have this chili that is amazing.
Wait, it's bone broth. They have chili?
Yeah, no, they have food stuff. They also make food things. So
Oh, I didn't even know that.
yeah. So this is chili. It's in the same kind of packaging that the bone broth is in.
Yeah.
But it's ready to eat. It's made with bone broth. Here's the ingredients: organic bone broth. You have mushrooms, organic mushroom powder, onions. You have organic grass-fed meat in this as well, and it's ready to eat. So you pour it out, you warm it up, and so I took it home and I put it over rice, and it's incredible. It's amazing, and the macros are freaking
Yeah, I'm
good.
into
Do we
chili.
have more of those here?
I took both of them.
Oh, dude.
Bitch.
yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
I'm barbecuing this weekend, so I get my butcher box shipment came in, and I was going to grill it up. That would be a perfect match with that.
No, and you know what I'm trying to do right now?
yeah.
I'm trying to look up the macros on it because let me see ingredients. Because I remember the macros were really good. It's it's high protein, it's got a decent amount of healthy fat, and then it's got some good carbs. So it's like a complete meal.
Well, it'd be moderate to low carb, I'd imagine. 'cause it's
Yeah,
just
from the beans.
that's
Yeah.
it.
No, it was the macros were incredible. I think it was like 18, if I'm not mistaken, like 18 grams. Oh, here it is. So there's 2 servings in a container.
Okay.
Okay. Now you think of this as in terms of like
A meal.
you're a guy, you're at home,
Right, a meal,
You don't
yeah.
want to cook anything, so
Yeah,
you,
that's easy.
you bust it out. It's all organic, super healthy, right? 10 grams of fat, 22 grams of carbs, 18 grams of protein, and there's 2 servings.
So 36, what did you say? 36, 44. And
So 10 grams of fat, 22 grams of carbs, 18 grams of protein,
What's
and
the
that's for 1 serving. There's 2 servings.
what's the total calories?
Total calories on that is where am I here? I don't know what that is, Adam.
You want
Telling me
some
to do
more
math right
cheese.
now? Yeah, I don't know.
Oh,
I
it
don't-
doesn't. You thought you were looking at the.
I am. I don't know why it doesn't say the calories. Let's do the math here. So that's 18 plus 22. What is that, Adam? You're the math guy.
Yeah, 18 plus 22 is 40.
Okay, so 40 times 4 plus 90. So what did I say? 40 times 4. 250 calories per serving.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No.
That's
So,
not bad
but
at
you
all.
got the 36 grams of protein for 1 carton, and I put it over rice, and I had like because you guys know I've been kind of eating more lately, trying to put on a little bit of
You get
size.
the thickness.
Justin was calling me thick, dude, on the trip. Maybe a little self-conscious.
Come on, man. Like, no, you look like a beefcake, dude.
Yeah, see?
It's a compliment.
We were throwing there was a Nerf football at
I was like, ooh,
at the
look
house.
this,
You guys were playing
thickness.
catch?
Yeah, so with the kids, right? So we're throwing the football with the
No,
kids.
Sal was throwing it a little bit. It was great.
Yeah. I got it on video, bro. I could throw.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. And he's like, Justin's like, thick, Sal. Like, what the fuck, bro?
Looking thick, man.
Yeah, like what the hell?
Yeah.
But anyway, our hookup with Kettle and Fire is for our audience 15% off all products, and then if you order 6 or more cartons, you'll get free shipping on the whole
shit.
thing.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So
So you really ate all the chili, so I won't be able to.
no, but we have curry. They also have Thai curry.
Well,
So-
what's going to go good? So I told you I'm grilling my butcher box this weekend. What's going to go good with that? I also got, by the way, this month they did a thing for new customers, and I weaseled this in. Is the 2 pounds of Alaskan cod come with it?
Alaskan
Or
salmon.
Alaskan salmon.
Yeah.
Have you tried their salmon yet?
Yeah, it's bomb.
Is it really?
Yes. And it's hard to rival Costco's salmon, dude. I really like Costco's salmon a lot, but their shit's on point.
Now, when you go to Costco, do you get wild salmon or do you get?
Wild.
Oh, you always get wild.
Yeah.
That's good.
Which is funny. You remember we were just talking the other day about if that's not gonna matter anymore. Soon, we predict that farm raised fish will be healthier than the fish in the ocean because
Apparently
of
there's all these toxins now and everything to worry about.
Well,
right?
I think
heavy metals and everything.
Well, it's not just that. It's that that's the think about all the food that we eat en masse, right? En masse. It's all 90% of it is either farmed or grown for the purpose of eating, or raised for the purpose of eating. The only thing that we kind of go out in the wild and hunt still for everybody is fish.
Yeah.
And so I don't. At some point, I think it's probably going to be farm raised. That's and they're going to have to do it in a way that's.
What are you talking about? They farm raised fish.
They do, but what I mean is we're still a lot of people are eating a lot of fish that's wild caught.
Oh, okay.
At some point, I think that's going to have to end, wouldn't you?
Well, no, you and I were speculating this just because of the stat that I had brought up about the plastic being more plastic in the ocean than fish.
Yeah.
And when that happens, I would imagine that
it'd be better to control the environment, right? Put them in like a
maybe. And I know there's somebody out there that's probably shaking their head, going like, "You guys are fucking stupid."
Yeah.
Like, that's not.
Well, who knows, man?
That's not true.
Who knows if they don't figure out a way to
just a wild guess.
Yeah,
that's all.
Wild like the Alaskan sockeye salmon.
Yeah,
that's free from
like that.
from Butcher Box.
Oh, that's that's a nice
tie-in.
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yeah.
So what are you going to grill up?
So I always get their and they call it, what's it called? It's their tri-tip. They call
steak
sirloin
tips?
cap.
Or
the
caps,
cap. Thank you. Yeah, it's called a cap. So I always get that. We always get the fillets and some ribeyes is like what we normally get, and I'll just grill. I grill it all up at one time, so I'll set it all.
I do
up.
that and all the burger patties and everything else, like for the kids. And
so I haven't done the burger patties yet from them yet. Have you?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I mean, and they like they kind of like break apart. I've learned how to like kind of grill them so like they don't just stick to the grill and like you rip off like half the meat. But
they're not.
They'll do that. They don't like. They're not as like
because it's grass fed.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a different texture that will fall in.
Yeah, so
there's a trick to that. Throw egg whites right in it.
Or yolks?
Yeah.
Is it egg whites or yolks?
Egg whites.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the whole
probably
egg.
better than me.
Put the whole egg.
Spray that
put the whole egg in it and mash it all up.
It'll make it stickier?
Yeah, it'll make it stickier.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll try that.
If for people who are like, grass fed and grain fed, it's the same. No, you can fucking feel it and taste it. And this is my own experience, okay? When I eat a lot of red meat, first of all, a lot of red meat, I always notice performance gains in the gym, strength. I just feel like I tend to build more muscle. I'm not the only one that's made this observation. This is an old, long-term observation that bodybuilders and strength athletes have made for a long time.
My theory on that is it's just the overall increase of protein and cholesterol.
You think so? And creatine.
Yeah, that's the three. You get the trifecta there. You're getting if you're having a ton of red meat more than usual, you're obviously going to get a boost in cholesterol. You're obviously going to get a boost in creatine. And more than likely, you're going to get a boost in protein.
Yeah.
And just the combination of all three of those.
Yeah, I would agree. That's probably what it is.
Building fuel.
Yeah, super high in B vitamins too. But the thing that I notice is when I eat a lot of like grain-fed beef, if I can eat a lot of meat. Red meat's the one thing that I can just push. But if I eat a lot of grain-fed meat, I start to feel a little bit bogged down, like a little bit like, oh man, I'm eating too much meat. Grass-fed doesn't have the same feel to me. Like I can eat a lot of grass-fed and I have that same kind of bogged down feel. Again, this is my own, personal experience, but anyway.
So being completely honest, this is one of the areas that I haven't seen a major difference yet. I choose to go that way just because it's like we have an option. I don't mind spending a couple extra bucks.
And Max Lugavere says, eat grass-fed.
Yeah,
that's
right.
what we do.
Yeah, that's everything Max says. I'm in.
So it's these are one of those things that I do that I have. I mean, we talk a lot on the show, the stuff that we have noticed a big difference if you've changed something in your diet. And there's no doubt in my mind, I notice like when I have Diet Cokes and the aspartame or sucralose, like I notice that my body gets I notice I hold a bunch of water. I feel all puffy and shit. And like I know that's off. It throws my gut off. I instantly am burping, throws my stool off sometimes too. So there's things like that I for sure notice a difference in by switching over. I've noticed since too, and this is just since I've met you, I started evaluating like my whey because I was always into whey. I do notice a difference if I'm using the Organifi protein versus the whey protein. It also makes me gassy and kind of bloated. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, so I've noticed little things like that. But the meat, I haven't put something together yet. Like, oh wow, when I eat grass-fed beef, I can feel or see the difference yet. It's not as obvious as some of the other things that we've
It's just
talked about.
interesting that the thing that really is interesting to me is a lot of the stuff that we start to support with science, or some stuff that we support with science. I can look back and be like, wow, bodybuilders and strength athletes have been commenting on that for a long time. Like the old timers always said, lots of red meat, you get your strength goes up, whatever. This is before we knew that creatine was the highest concentrations in red meat and stuff like that. So it makes a lot of sense once you learn it later on, but they've been saying that kind of stuff for a long time. You know what else is interesting? So so I got to give Jessica a plug because I'm always talking about stuff that she's reading and I never give her a plug. So her Instagram page is The Training Hour, and she's been reading this book called I think it's called The Circadian Code. Have you guys heard about this? This book? Sachin Panda, I think is the guy's name. Anyway, and she's been telling me some interesting things about how how to work out and how to eat according to your natural circadian rhythm. So this is fascinating. I didn't know this. The best time of day for stamina and endurance is in the morning. The best time of day for strength and anaerobic performance in the afternoon. So we've known this for a long time, right? I didn't know about the stamina one. I didn't know about that I had best stamina in the morning, but I did know that my strength.
Really?
Yeah.
I would feel like later in the day for me, stamina would be best, but
no. Well, studies show that, and who knows? Maybe you're thinking about lifting, because I know when I lift,
that might be it.
I'm stronger at night.
But to me, it makes logical sense why it would be that way, because you're completely like your stomach's all emptied out, right? I think to like run for endurance, if I had 2 or 3 meals in me, I would feel kind of lethargic or weighed down. Where if I didn't have that in me and I was just enough from like the night before, that you still have your stores are stored up, so you got fuel.
Sure. We'll trip off this, and here's how they explain it. But trip off this again. Studies show endurance, like steady state endurance, best in the morning, strength best in the afternoon. And I know the strength part. When I lift weights in the afternoon, I'm always stronger.
Yeah,
that's why I like to lift in the afternoon. So so there's 2 things that are trippy about this. So what she's putting together by reading this book and by reading other things according to the circadian rhythm is that they surmise that hunter-gatherers, think about how they hunted. They would chase their prey down until it got exhausted, which started early in the morning. Early in the morning, they'd go out, they'd hit something, it would bleed, and they'd follow it and follow it and follow it for 10, 15 miles until it got exhausted. Then they'd go in, kill it, and then they'd have to lift it and carry it back.
Oh, right.
So it was like stamina and endurance in the morning,
aerobic on the way back,
strength in the afternoon. So we just evolved to work better. Now, here's the other thing. Bodybuilders, forever, if they could work out all day long, when would they do their cardio?
In the morning.
And when would they lift?
Yeah.
Afternoon.
Right.
How weird is that?
Yeah.
Again, it's like that old time wisdom, and it kind of matches up what science says. And we were talking about this yesterday, and I was like, oh shit, that totally makes sense. That's so weird, right?
That is crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, dude, my son's had his last volleyball game yesterday with his team. Yeah, dude.
This was his last one of the season?
Last one of the season.
How'd they do?
They won, and they went the whole season undefeated.
Whoa, really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So undefeated
Now, this is interesting to listen to you talk about your son going through this, because you've talked a lot about him being a lot like you, and he's definitely academically driven and into robotics and kind of into that stuff. And this is really the last year or two has been a lot of introduction into sports. Mm-hmm. What are you seeing with him? And I mean, for me as a kid, when you get to play on a team, in fact, I don't even think I ever played on an undefeated team. But I've played on teams that were dominant, and when you are, man, is that fun and exciting to be winning all the time? Do you think it's giving him the itch? What do you think?
Well, what I like to see, he's definitely competitive, but there's things he excels at, and there's things that he's not going to excel at, just like anybody else, right? And he definitely excels at academic type things and strategy type things, and sports are just things that he's not as interested in. But what I do appreciate is as I'm watching them play volleyball, and they're all playing together as a team very, very well, is that, and I'm watching to see how they interact with each other, the kids, and you have the star players, and then you have the players who, don't play as much, but they all were supportive of each other. Everybody celebrated together, even the players that didn't play that much, just like the players that play a lot. But my son, he's got respect amongst his peers, which I like to see that, because what I noticed that he's learning through playing sports with these kids is how to become a part of a unit, how your piece, however big or small,
role player,
is important.
Right.
And it's really cool to see that, because the kids are like high fiving, and they all respect, but they respect him a lot, which is really, really cool.
Well, there's a lot of research on when you have your kids in sports, like what that ends up teaching them as far as their ability to work with others. There's also stuff to show their likelihood of getting involved in drugs and
totally.
other violence and doing other stuff like that. It's like it's so healthy for the kids to be a part of that at such early, and probably more so now today than ever.
I would 100% agree with you because, what I see with sports is kids, learn how to lose, which is very important in life because winning is easy. And I don't mean it's easy to win. I mean, after you win, it's easy to deal with it.
Right.
Losing is fucking hard.
Right.
It's the hardest thing that you'll ever deal with is just getting your ass kicked at life. And sports kind of teaches you how to deal with that. It also teaches you to be able to depend on people and trust people, but also to be dependable and to be someone that people can trust.
It's super important to be, you hope that they're on both ends of that in terms of like the team being a losing team and also being a winning team, because you see like the difference between both. It's very clear when you're on a winning team and when you're on a losing team and why that is. And you see that within like everybody's role and how much they contribute and how much they're willing to work and do the extra, in terms of like what the coach gives you, but everybody's working outside of just that. That's a winning team.
Yeah. What's cool too is that his team is not the most athletic team of all the team. When they play all these other teams, like the team they played last night was far more athletic. The kids were fucking giants. I don't know what they're feeding these kids at the school. Like they had 4 boys that were 5'10" to 6 foot. These are 7th and 8th graders. They're tall, big kids, and in volleyball, that's a big advantage. My son's team has one kid that's 5'10" or 5'11", and everybody else is like 5'5", 5'6". So like average size, 7th and 8th graders. But they played so well together, and they were diving, and then when they would miss something, it was like, let's get back on, and it was so great to watch them. And then they won, and it was fucking awesome. But now that the season's over, my son comes up to me, and he goes, and this is just, I'm excited now. He goes, all right, I'm ready to like really train now. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, like, let's because we've been dabbling.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you ready to lift? Like, really lift? And he goes, yeah. And I said, what's your goal? Like, what are your goals? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, well, what do you want to accomplish with this? And he goes, I want to, and this is his words, he goes, I want to pack on some size.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh my God. Dude. I mean, I'm just so excited right now.
Yeah. You should get into coaching. I highly suggest it.
Is it awesome?
Oh, man. Like, I didn't even want to coach last night.
Yeah, they'll have no idea. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'll be a terrible coach. I'll motivate the fuck
Are
out
you
of them.
kidding me? You'll get in there and read like a million different drills and things. It's not that hard.
I want you to get into it because, and we've all had this thing where we each are like, you got to try this out or you have to look into this. I already know you so well that the deeper you dive into sports, the more of appreciation that you will have for the game. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about the things like someone was asking me in an interview the other day. They were asking like, what do I attribute like my success to today? And 3 of the things that come to mind to me. One of them, obviously, the adversity that I went through as a kid, I think was one of the best things that ever happened to me because it forged me into who I am today. Definitely the readings of reading the Bible growing up from 7 years old all the way up till an adulthood, and then sports. When I think of the 3 things that like taught me the most about life,
makes sense.
I would say those 3 things really, when I look back at all the attributes that I've obtained. And I think about where did those all stem originally from, and they were those 3 things. Man, sports play such a huge role.
I think
hyper learning and growth.
Yeah.
That's like your environment right there. That's completely constructed for you to develop in that environment and like figure it out. Like you have to figure it out. The consequences.
And
are
you're
real.
such a cerebral guy that that's why I love professional sports. Is because when you're a kid, it's fun. It's fun, and you're learning lessons and everything like that. When you've evolved into an adult and you're at the professional level, you've already laid the foundation.
It's strategy.
Now it's the cerebral part. Now the emotions that the players are playing in, the mind games that get played, the strategy and how you play that team, like all that really comes into
That's
play.
why
you really put in the work studying like the other team and like their tendencies and all the little nuances involved. Like you can get really deep into it, and it pays off.
The kids right now they're learning like the chess pieces on the chessboard right now. Like this is what this is for. This is how they work together.
Right.
Like they're learning all that.
The fundamentals.
When you get to the professional level, it's fucking full on.
It's
chess.
like 10 steps.
Yeah,
ahead,
man.
That's why I like jiu-jitsu so much. Jiu-jitsu is it's a very cerebral martial art. I mean, you're at points you're going slow, you're thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. You know what I find very remarkable about what you said, Adam, that I want to go back to because it needs to be highlighted, is something that you said that I think is incredibly remarkable, and it just highlights what makes you a special person is your attitude towards adversity. You literally said, "I'm grateful for my adversity," and a lot of people don't know this, but your father committed suicide, and you had in some aspects a rough childhood. A lot of people don't look at things that way.
Right.
You know, a lot of people look back and like, "Oh, it was fucking terrible what happened to me. Great. It was a horrible time. I don't want to think about it." Instead, you think, "I'm thankful for it because it made me, who I am today, made me stronger." Well, that's a very important thing that needs to be communicated to people, because I think all people have some level of challenge or adversity in their life, and it's really how you view it. If you view it the way you did, fuck, you're going to come out and be a badass. If you view it the other way, the adversity can be tiny. It'll crush you.
Right. There's an evolution of that, right? I definitely, in my early 20s, I had a lot of resentment and anger, and probably even some of the victim role. And I think at one point you either evolve out of that or it forever stifles your growth the rest of your life. And I meet adults that are in their 50s and still dealing with childhood issues, stuff that fucked them up as a kid, and they're still, angry about it or still feel sorry for themselves about it, and they never move beyond that. And I guess I was lucky that I started to piece together that having that attitude towards those things was not allowing me to flourish and grow. And when I learned to reframe all of that had happened to me, and what did it turn me into, and sure, all this was negative and bad, or this is a bad situation. And like you said, everybody has those. What was the other side of that? Because something else comes out of that, right? Anytime that we have adversity or struggles and pain and all the difficulties, there's also that growth and opportunity that happen there. And the more that you can start to look at all those things, like, oh shit, okay, I didn't have a father. Well, what did that cause me to be? Well, it caused me to be a very independent young man at a very young age, which allowed me to be much more mature than a lot of my peers at a very young age too, which forced me to grow and get into leadership at a very young age, and look where I'm at in my life when in leadership roles. So, there's things like that I've learned to point out and then to be grateful. And now when I talked about this in an interview, somebody was talking to me or asking these questions, and we were diving into my childhood and stuff. And I was like, now I feel like I've gotten to a point in my life where, and it's taken years, I'm fucking going on 38 years old, but now, like, when shit goes really bad, like when something happens, I have my moment. And Hal Elrod talked about this a little bit, where he has his 5-minute rule, right? Mm-hmm. Where he's just like, fuck, and I don't have a rule. I didn't write some weird book about it and make something out of it. It's something that I've trained myself to do for a long time, that when shit happens, yes, I'm pissed. Yes, I'm frustrated. Yes, I feel sorry for myself for a minute. But then after that, it's like, what's done is done. I can't do anything about it. Now let's look at the positive sides of this, and then what's going to come of it. Mm-hmm. And that's really tough to do when it's something really dark or it really knocks you down. And the darker it is, the more it knocks you down, the better it is on the other side. And because I've gone through enough things in my life that have proven this to be true, now I have this attitude of when something comes on, I just get kind of this smirk or grin on my face, like, damn, shit's bad right now. But you know what that means? Shit's gonna get good.
Yeah.
And the worse it is, the shittier it is, the better it is on the other side.
That's how you make yourself, indestructible.
Endure it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what do they say? Steel is forged by fire and hammer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You don't make steel, but by gently caressing it, you got to beat the shit out of it and put it through fire.
You know what else I noticed too, and I know this is getting into like some woo-woo shit, like whatever you believe, whether you believe it's a God thing or you believe it's a law of attraction, but I believe that when you have this positive attitude and nothing really scares you as far as bad things that could potentially happen to you, less of it happens. The more that you dwell on how rough things are for you, how bad things are for you, the more you attract that shit.
Yeah.
The more drama comes on you. The more you feel sorry for your situation, the more likely more bad situations tend to happen to you.
I would 100% agree, and I can even attempt to explain it through just how we operate. Like if you're slightly more negative or a little bit more dark or a little bit more victim-y, then the decisions that you make, even the small decisions, or can have that kind of butterfly effect and have downstream effects. And so you think, if I'm just feeling a little victim-y, that's not going to really make the difference between big success and little success. Let me tell you something. When you talk to people who have tremendous success in whatever area of life, at some point during that sequence of events that led to that, there was weird shit that happened. There was like the one random dude. Like I'll talk to people who are like entrepreneurs, for example, and you'll ask them, how did you become successful? Like, well, I always just went out there and talked to people, and I was always trying to sell this product. And then I met this one dude. He didn't want to buy my product, but then we became good friends. And then I met his other buddy, and then that guy had this idea, and then I worked with him. And it's like this weird path of events that led to
this chain link of events, dude. One thing I liked, this analogy, it was from like a Native American analogy. It's two wolves, right?
Yeah.
It's really it's which one you're feeding the most and which one you're starving. And
that's
so
the one that'll grow.
That's the one that's going to grow. And so it's like, whatever if it's negative, like attitude, if it's ways that you're dealing with situations, if you're going to add, whatever kind of energy in that direction, like that's what you're feeding.
It's true. It's and it's true for anything. And in the black and white world of physical performance is true too. Like I know in wrestling and jiu-jitsu, when you would go against these dudes that grew up on farms who had to wake up at 4 a.m. and go out in the cold and throw bales of hay and shovel shit and whatever, and you would go against those guys, and it were way fucking harder than the dudes that lifted weights in the gym all the time. They were just forged again by fire. And that's a very basic kind of, black and white example in terms of physical performance. But yeah, you can apply that to pretty much anything. But it's important that we highlight that because everybody goes through, difficult shit. Everybody's got their difficult stuff.
Well, it transfers into so many other things like you were alluding to right now. I mean, it's why I was able to be a guy who never knew anything about bodybuilding really, and go from average Joe physique to amateur to professional in a very short period of time, because I have this ability to just look at adversity different than a lot of my peers and a lot of the people that I'm around. I just don't. Yeah, of course it's going to be fucking hard. Like no shit.
So
like
that's a given.
Yeah, it's
ain't going to be as hard as the other shit. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. You're right. And then also remembering, and I love that my partner is like this. Katrina is, and I've shared this on the podcast at least once or twice before when we have, rough days at work or something happens that, didn't go well and I'm venting and I'm frustrated, and she just lets me vent for my 2-minute rant or whatever. And then she looks back at me and says, would you want it any other way? And challenges me to really think about that. And it always makes me go,
rains on your little sad part.
yeah, right. It's like, it makes me go like, fuck,
Cuts it. Yeah,
you're right.
Prunes it right away.
You're right. Would I want it all easy? Like, no. And a lot of people don't realize that. If you think about that, like we think we want it easier, but it's like, no, how boring would life be?
It's not as rewarding.
Definitely not as rewarding.
Not just boring, but look, would taking a helicopter up to Mount Everest have the same feeling as climbing it? I mean, let's be quite honest, right? Not even close.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. It'd be beautiful.
You can take a cool pic and get whatever praise,
That's right. That's right.
It's not going to be the same.
That's why when I talk about, fitness, and I'll circle back to fitness just because that's, our space, the main benefits you get from working out and in having a good relationship with food and working through that process, the main benefits come from the process, not the end result of being lean and fit and healthy. Like that's nice too, but it's the struggle, it's the process, it's the work that you do along the way. That's where 95% of the benefits come. That's why if we had a magic pill that could literally make you fit and healthy, that would not solve the problem at all. People would take the pill and they would not gain all the benefits that they could have gotten through going through the process of learning themselves and working hard and struggle and that growth that comes through that whole that whole journey. Yeah. That's where you get everything.
It's so true, and it's why we can't just give the answer for each person individually, because you got to go on that journey yourself.
That's what it's all about.
You got to figure it out. Like every client I've ever trained, like in fact, I was just talking to a client friend of mine today, and we were talking about. She was like, because she's listened to the show since the evolution of it, and she's always likes to reflect on how we started. And she was talking about how she is seeing the growth of the show, but yet we still seem to revisit these same topics a lot of the times. Mm-hmm. And she's like, but it never gets old. And she goes, I haven't put my finger on why that is. And I said, well, this is why. I said, think about you and I said, I've known you for like 10 years, and you've heard me talk about food and this and that to you a million times. But I feel like just about 4 years ago when we were training in your garage, you had like this epiphany with your diet and nutrition, and you forever now have been changed on the way you eat. And like something I said or something that we applied to your eating habits, a light bulb went off for you. And she's like nodding her head, like she's like, you're right, that's so crazy. And I was like, yeah. And it's not like that was new information I presented to you, but maybe I presented it in a different way that it just clicked for you. Yeah. And then it applied to your life. And all of fitness is like this. It's like everybody listening right now has their own struggles, has their own things they do really well, has the things they don't do very well. And then they all have like this missing piece that, man, if you could just figure that one piece out, it would make the world of a difference for you, but maybe not for somebody else. And that is just it. The part of this journey is figuring that out for yourself and piecing that together and learning to enjoy that process.
Right. And it's not just the information, it's the person hearing the information, and you yourself change. In other words, that you're not the same person listening to the same information each time. Each time you're someone different, and you listen and you hear it differently.
Right. And also, like, our version of that same message has changed. We've refined the process because we've said it over and over again. And so, there's a way to deliver it more concise, in a way that like doesn't use up a lot of fluff. So that way, like, maybe it's just, here's the root of that idea. Like, this is really what you need to focus on. And then that's the most simple version that now people can have that moment where like, oh, now it makes sense. It just clicked.
That's it. It's all about the process.
This Quaz brought to you by Organifi. For those days you fall short on getting your organic veggies or whole food nutrition, Organifi fills the gap with laboratory-tested certified organic superfoods to help give your health and performance the added edge. Try Organifi totally risk-free for 60 days by going to Organifi.com. That's ORGANIFI.com. And use the coupon code MINDPUMP for 20% off at checkout. Our first question is from Terry Country Chick Fitness. I have fallen in love with resistance training, but the one muscle I find boring is training biceps. It seems like there are only a few exercises that I can do.
Oh, man, I'm a bicep guy.
Yeah,
I'm with you on this one.
Justin doesn't know anything about this.
It is boring.
100% a guy didn't ask this question. There's no way, because the two muscles that guys always work out. Like, I've never
That's
had.
not true. Justin doesn't. Justin hates bicep curls.
It's all chest for me, man. Chest and shoulders.
Well, I mean, let me ask you guys this: how many male clients have you ever had to like talk about and convinced to train their chest?
Oh yeah, I'd be easy to close for sure.
Yeah.
No, but one of the things, and we did a video on YouTube, and it's awful. So I apologize. It was when we first started. We didn't know what we were doing, but the content in it is fire. Is meaning like what the information that we provided, and we're goofy and don't know what the fuck we're doing. It was back when we used to all three do the YouTube together, and we did this YouTube video at that old gym that we used to be at. And it was, I don't remember the title of it. I'll have Jackie link it in the show notes for this person. But it was talking about biceps and triceps. And one of the biggest game changers for me as a trainer, when I realized that one of the most important things about training the biceps is elbow positioning. And then, from once I pieced that together and realized that, oh, wow, I should have my elbows behind me, my elbows in front of me, and my elbows up above my head, and those are my three major angles that I'm playing with. Now, as a trainer, I can get creative and find all kinds of different exercises, from spider curls to using like a lat pull down machine and curling down behind my head to laying on the ground and curling. And so once you kind of understand the physics of what you're trying to accomplish, which is just the angles that you want to manipulate with your elbow positioning, then it can get fun on how creative you get with the different exercises.
Yeah, there's really two things that you can manipulate with bicep training. One being the position of the elbows, and the other being hand supination or pronation. In other words, is my hand or my palms facing each other like in a hammer curl, or my palms facing up like in a traditional barbell curl, or my hands facing down like a reverse curl. And the hand positioning will change bicep activation. So when your hands are supinated, in other words, palm up, you're getting mostly bicep activation. When your hands are facing each other or down, you're getting more brachialis activation and brachioradialis activation. The brachioradialis muscle is a muscle in the forearm, so let's forget that for a second. But the brachialis muscle is a muscle that is right under your bicep. And if you develop that muscle, it will make your bicep look bigger and thicker. Now, that being said, here's the deal with the bicep. There's two parts to the bicep, or they'll call them two heads to the bicep. In fact, the name bicep means two heads. And those two heads, they're attachment points. In other words, where they attach at both ends. Because when you think of a muscle, imagine a rubber band that is attached at two ends. And if the rubber band were to squeeze itself, it would pull those 2 points together. That's essentially what muscles do. And those attachments are important things to pay attention to because they'll give you a lot of clues in terms of what exercises will do what. Well, here's the deal with the attachments for the two heads. They're super close to each other, like right next to each other. So there's really no exercise that you're going to do that's going to hit one head over the other head, because I know some people are like, oh, this hits the inner bicep more than the outer bicep. You are splitting hairs on hairs when you start to worry about that. Now, something like a chest, like your pecs, your chest have attachments all along the sternum, and so changing the angle of a press does make a big difference in terms of hitting things like upper and lower chest. But as far as hitting like inner head, outer head of the bicep, not that big of a difference. But one thing you can manipulate, like Adam said, is the elbow position. Because what ends up happening is this. Imagine right now, and I'm going to try and explain this through the podcast. Imagine you're doing a barbell curl. That's just, for those of you who don't know what that is, it's just standing with a barbell in your hand, you curl it straight up. When you're curling the barbell, it's a free weight. The weight isn't fully, you're not feeling the full effect of the weight until you're about halfway up the curl, because that's when you're fighting gravity directly, right? The beginning of the curl, I'm starting at my legs and I'm coming forward and up. That forward and up position, it's not, let's say there's 50 pounds in the bar. It's not 50 pounds of weight until I'm, boom, right against gravity directly. And then when I curl past that midway point towards bringing it towards my body, towards the top of the curl, again, the weight gets a little lighter. So when you're doing a barbell curl, the hardest part of the rep is that middle part of the rep. Moving my elbow position means I'm going to change the position of where the weight's going to be heaviest. So another example would be a preacher curl. A preacher curl is where my elbow is over that padded, it's like a padded machine or whatever, a padded bench that you could put a barbell on. My elbows are in front of me, and what you'll find is the midway point, which was the most difficult part of a barbell curl, now is easy because now gravity's pushing the weight down, but my forearms are resting on the pad. A preacher curl's hardest part is towards the end of the rep, where my arms are almost fully extended. So a preacher curl is going to provide more tension at the bottom part of a rep. A barbell curl will provide more tension at the middle part of a rep.
And then the next level of that would be like a spider curl, which would be at the very peak of
At
it.
the peak,
Right.
because now I'm bending over again. Now, here's the thing now. My elbows are in front of me again, just like they were with the preacher curl, but the difference is the angle of resistance. Now, because I'm laying chest down on a bench, my elbows are pointing down. The hardest part is that squeeze. And so really what you want to focus on is elbow position, but also where it's going to be, where you're going to feel the most tension of the rep, and then hand position. So now you can get really, really creative and design your bicep workouts around these different things. Years ago, there was I remember learning this a long time ago. There was a book called, I think it was called Positions of Flexion, I think was the name of the book. And it was written by Iron Man Magazine had put this out, or at least the same authors that wrote there made this book. And I remember the cover of it had, I think it was Paul DeMeo, who was a deceased bodybuilder. But anyway, the whole concept of that book was exactly what I'm talking about, the position where the muscle is going to feel the most tension. Now, to be quite honest with you, that is not nearly as important as just good exercise programming,
Right.
the type of exercise you're doing, good resistance, the reps, that kind of stuff. But it is a piece of it. It is a piece of the programming, and it does make a big enough difference to where you should definitely consider this. So like when we design our MAPS programs, that's a part of our design. When we're putting together 3 back exercises in a workout, or 3 bicep exercises or tricep or whatever, part of what goes into the programming is exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you could get into tempo a bit too with like eccentric training, where maybe we're going to focus a little bit more on the negative portion of that too, to really kind of break down and get more emphasis using that as a variable as well. So there are like different, variables that you can introduce for a simple exercise like a bicep curl to enhance that exercise even further.
Yeah.
Well, this is, Doug always hates when I do this, I'm going to do it anyways, but this is something we're excited about that we've been working on for a while that should be coming very soon. But, we're going to have these Minimods where we are targeting specific areas like this, like the bicep or like the shoulder, that will allow people to just implement those into their programs.
Just to change their bicep workout alone.
Right.
Or
Because we get this a lot where somebody has something very specific. Oh, just, I need some more exercises for my biceps, or I need more exercises for my
just
shoulders.
More in the arsenal to pull from.
Right. And so we've taken all what Sal is saying, how we take the time to program it, and we think about all these things as far as angles and positions and hand placement, and make sure that we manipulate these variables so you get the maximum results in it. So we've done that already, and then we've created, basically they're like mini versions of maps. They're small programs. The same time and effort is put into designing them and shooting them and creating all the blueprints for them.
We'll hopefully have that out for you soon, so you have some options. But going back to the topic of bicep, the things that I'm talking about, consider them when you're doing the exercises also. So again, if I go back to the preacher curl, where most of the tension is at the end, the beginning of the rep, when my arm is almost fully extended. What part of the rep do you think I'm going to emphasize? That part. Now, here's what I see. I see the opposite. I see people doing a preacher curl, and they avoid the heaviest part.
Yeah, they don't go through full range of motion.
No, they avoid the best part because they want to use more weight. And so what they end up doing is this half curl where they're not using much, and so they can boast about how much they curl.
Such a good point.
Yeah.
Same thing with the concentration curl or a spider curl. People will avoid the hardest squeeze part, and they'll end up doing these half reps. And it's like you are missing the reason why that exercise is in your workout to begin with.
Such a good point.
So wherever you feel that most of that tension in that rep, regardless of the body part you're working on, that's where you should place the emphasis.
There. Yeah.
Yes. So like a barbell curl, it's not as important to go full extension in a barbell curl. It's still important, but not as important. What's important is that you control that mid-range. It's more important in the preacher curl that you do the full extension. If I did like a concentration curl or spider curl, the part of the rep I'm really going to focus on is the top. And that's what's going to dictate the weight that I'm using as well. So if I pick a weight for an exercise, I have to perform the most important part of the rep well with that weight, which means it's going to feel light in other parts. So when I pick a preacher curl weight, I base it on the hardest part of the rep, not on the easier part. So the easier part I could do all day long with whatever weight, whatever weight I'm using, but it's that end part. I really focus on that stretch and feeling the tension at the end and then coming out of it, because that's what that exercise is really good at. So if your bicep training is getting boring, the odds are what's happening is you're considering them all the same. Oh, it's all the same exercise. It's all hitting the biceps. I'm just doing barbell and dumbbell curls, and that's it. No. When you start understanding these things, it gets real fun. And I haven't even touched on machines. Machines provide a whole different element of, positions of tension and where you're feeling it the most and whatever. Consider that when you're putting together your workout.
Of course, especially since this is a case where we recommend it when you're talking about ancillary, or other your auxiliary muscles that are you're working small isolation exercises. Machines are great for that, and and biceps in particular. I think a lot of the machines that they've designed are pretty cool for that, for both bis and
absolutely.
tris.
Next question is from Johnny Olives. You guys rag a lot on running. Do you think running can be done efficiently and effectively? If so, how would you go about doing this? Okay,
so great topic. Here's the reason why we rag on running, because 9 out of 10 people don't do it right.
Yeah, and they don't learn it first.
That's it. Now, I'm going to be very, very clear. Historically, humans are, forever, since the beginning of time, there's a couple physical things that humans evolved to do very well. We're not like very physical creatures like most animals. Like, we're not the strongest. We're not the, but there's a couple things that we do really, really well. We run really fucking well. When you get a human who's been running since birth, and they've been doing it, and they're hunter-gatherers, and humans can actually outrun for distance almost any animal. In fact, there's a race that's done that was done for years, where you would have it was a distance race, and it was a man versus horse, and there were times when the man would win, and horses are way faster than humans. We just have we are literally built to run. So can you do running efficiently and effectively? Yes. Here's the problem. Most people in modern societies, they pick up running when they're already adults. Too late. It's this now you've got to like retrain a skill that you never developed as a child, except for maybe playing at recess.
The problem with that is not. I don't know if many people. You have to take this into consideration when you bring up and you talk about what we evolved to, and we paint this picture of a hunter-gatherer tribe, thousands of years ago, and something that you have to also envision them doing besides running barefoot and skipping across the land is them sitting around a fire,
yay,
in a baby position and able to. Their mobility is insane.
Oh yeah,
they're not used to sitting in cars and sitting at desks all day long, and their body's starting to form and shape into this, excessive anterior pelvic tilt and upper cross syndrome with the rounded shoulders. And so this is what's happening to we've evolved to this. The new human posture doesn't look like the hunter-gatherer tribe thousands of years ago.
That's right.
What it looks like now is this forward head, rounded shoulders, this butt tilted. Like that's what we look like. And then we decide to take that evolved human and say, hey, I'm 25, I'm 30, whatever age you are, and I want to get in shape, or I want to get into running, and you just start running. And then you ask a question like this, like, how do I get better at running? And you think it's like the sport of running that you need to improve, but really what it is you're mechanically broken, or your body has been formed and shaped in a way that is not advantageous for running and pounding on the ground for thousands of steps, in a short period of time. No. So you have to understand that.
You have to appreciate it.
Yeah, you have to understand that when you say things like we evolved to run. Well, yeah, we evolved to run back then, but we're not. What we're evolved to do now? Sit at a computer. Yeah. We've evolved to sit at a desk and work for 15 hours and drink Soylent. Like that's what we've evolved to do now. Yeah. That's what our bodies look like now.
Well, so are you guys familiar with, have you ever heard the term feral children? Have you ever heard about these before?
Yeah.
So these are real situations where they found a child that, was abandoned in the wilderness.
It was like raised by animals.
And there's actually a few cases where this happened. And they'll find these kids when they're like 13, 14 years old. And these are kids that never learned how to speak because they were out and they act like the animals that they were around. And what they end up doing is they try to teach these children how to behave in modern society or however modern the society was when they found them. Because I think the last one was like 1920s or late 1800s. And they try to teach them how to speak English and all that stuff. Forever, these children could never develop the speech skills that other kids could develop because they lost all that time in the beginning of those formidable development years. Now, they did learn how to speak and communicate, but they never evolved. They never got to the point where they could talk like a normal person because the brain at that point had done a lot of the crazy growth and stuff. So here's what happens to you now. You are now a modern human. You are not a hunter-gatherer. Your mom and dad put shoes on you the second you could walk. Yeah. And you were not running all day long. You were not hunting with your dad. You were not, if you ran, it was at the playground, and especially today, almost never. And so then you're a 20-something-year-old, 30-something-year-old, 40-something-year-old person, and like, I want to start running. I'm going to learn how to run. Can you improve your running? You definitely can. And you can, but here's the thing, put a lot of time and effort into it, and also understand this, you'll never, ever develop the skills to be able to run like somebody who was running their entire lives. And the reason why I'm saying that is not to discourage you to not run. It's to tell you to appreciate this. Because when you go out and run, treat it like a skill. Treat it exactly like a skill. Stop doing it to work out. Instead of working out with running, treat it like a skill that you're learning each time.
Well, that's the differentiating factor, and I think that you really have to understand what your goal is with running. Like, and if you can kind of determine that, because for me, it's always been more anaerobic running and sprinting, and that's like something that I want to like know the exact mechanics of how to, best display power and ground forces, and what that looks like on my takeoff, what that looks like, and how to manage my body at a certain angle to be most efficient. And then what is my what does that look like too, like in terms of my stride, and how can I improve my speed, and in terms of like speed and all that. That would be my goal as an athlete, is to get better at these bursts and things like that, in terms of using and utilizing running mechanics. Now, if you're just in it for endurance, that looks completely different. That's a totally different gait. That's a totally different mechanical process. And so you have to go down that that road and find those exact mechanics that are most ideal for energy management.
You hit it right on the head, Justin, with it. You have to first determine your goal. I think the biggest problem that I have with running is most people that are doing it for the wrong reasons. So, for example, like if you want to do something that is endurance-based, that is meditative, like you go, I feel amazing when I go out and run, and it serves this amazing purpose for me to meditate, and it alleviates stress in your life, and it makes you a better human being. Like, fucking, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong. Now, I also still think that there's other forms of endurance training that could probably be healthier for your body. But if running is something you love to do, then by all means. If your goal is, I want to lose body fat, running may or may not be the most ideal thing for this person. If your goal is to be overall healthy, it may or may not be the best thing for you. And I think that's the thing, is most of the time when I hear people, or I had clients that wanted to run, a lot of times it was for the reason like Sal alluded to at the very beginning of this conversation, which is, they just all of a sudden they decide that they want to lose weight, and they want to
sweat.
And they're doing it with the intention to burn calories.
Look. Here's the problem with running. I'll put it in a nutshell. It's the least respected form of exercise. Okay, and I don't mean that like I don't respect it as a fitness professional.
Right.
I mean the average person respects running the least. The average person, if you tell them, hey, you want to go start lifting weights? The average person will think, oh, I got to learn how to do that first. Nobody says that about running. Everybody's like, oh, just go out and run. Just go out and run.
Dude,
nobody respects it.
Yeah, example of that is just look at the App Store. Look at all the fitness apps. What is the majority of them?
Running. People think it's
the easiest, no bench barrier to entry.
That's what they think, right? They think they don't respect it. Here's my advice. If you want to run, fine, no problem with that whatsoever. Respect the fuck out of it. Either hire a coach, I think hiring a running coach would be worth its weight in gold if running is something you really want to do. The benefits you would get from that would be far exceed the amount of money that it will cost to hire the coach. So hire a coach. If you can't afford that, go online, practice running. Don't run to work out, but treat it like a skill. Go outside, practice it. And here's what happens when you practice something. Your form goes to shit when you get tired. So guess how much running you're going to do? Very little at first. You're going to run. As soon as you get tired, stop. Go back. Okay, let me practice my mechanics. Do it again. Practice. Give yourself a long time before you get to the point where you're going out and just doing runs. And when I say a long time, I mean, again, respect it. It could take you a year, 2 years, or longer. But if you do that, then you're not going to run into all the problems that we see people running into when they go and run for a workout.
Next question is from Joe Did 29. If someone has been in a prolonged caloric deficit and then starts binging, how would that affect their metabolism?
Oh, wow.
Binging? So there was that study that came out that showed that, and I think it was I want to say it was an animal study, but we think this happens in humans too, where they put these animals in a caloric deficit, and then they overfed them. So they didn't just go up to normal amount of food. They binged them basically with lots and lots of food. And what they found was two things. One was suspected that everybody thought would happen. They would gain body fat, right? The body's going to try to capture all these calories and store them because that's what bodies do really well. But here was the other thing that was unexpected. They added the number of fat cells.
Right.
So
Isn't that what Lane Norton brought up on her show?
Yeah. So not only did the fat cells get bigger, but they added more fat cells. And the theory is that the body, when exposed to all these calories after being in a deficit, not only does it want to store the calories, but it wants to increase its capacity to store calories. It wants to get better at getting fat because this is a situation that may happen again.
Yeah.
And your body wants to take advantage of all these calories. Remember, your body looks at these calories like money, like, oh shit. Imagine this, okay? Let me use an analogy. Let's imagine, let's pretend it's not calories, let's pretend it's money. And you're making a little bit of money, and it's really hard. And so you think, oh shit, it's really hard to come across a lot of money. It's hard times. And you have a bank account, and the bank account limit is $5,000. So you can't store more than $5,000. But right now you only have $10 in there. And then all of a sudden you come upon all this cash. You got 10 grand. You can only put 5 grand in there. The rest, let's imagine you have nowhere else to put it. The next thing you're going to do is get another bank account because you're like, fuck, if this happens again, I need to be able to save this money. So that's what happens with your body. It adds more fat cells with a binge after a calorie deficit. So, and I think this is what happens when we see these competitors go through this cutting and binging state. You ever notice this? You watch them do these competitions and they have a terrible off season. They all just pig out and go crazy. Yeah. And
Dude,
each time it's harder.
All of cuts have to be harder.
So they I forget what the term is. There's the bodybuilding community has a term for this. And what a lot of them do is they take off a few shows and they just let their body, reset. But this is exactly what's happening.
It gets harder and harder.
Yeah, and anybody who's listening, I'm sure it can totally relate to this. And this is the science that supports that. What we're talking about right now is, how many people can recall or have said this, like, man, I remember it used to be so easy when I wanted to get lean. I remember, and I used to say this. I used to say I'm 2 weeks out to be pool ready any time of the year. No matter how I was eating, no matter how inconsistent or whatever I was with the gym, like 2 weeks, I could dial it in, get myself in the gym, and boom, I would be back in good enough shape to hit the pool. Like I used to say that. Like that is not fucking true anymore. Yeah. Like if I'm out of shape or I've even slightly fallen out of shape, the work to get back in shape is harder, and it's compounding as I get older, and I notice that. And this is part of the reason why is I know every time I put on extra body fat that I'm adding fat cells, which is making it that much more difficult for me to lean back out
now,
again.
To be clear, the adding the fat cells has been observed with a binge, not with a normal
it's an extreme
surplus. Yes.
Right. And it only makes sense too because I think of it like feast famine. Like the body is really smart in terms of like being predictive towards its environment. And so that DNA, like, of course that had carried with us till now. Like, why wouldn't we still have that within us in terms of like trying to survive? And so, that's the best way to survive is your body to predict these. Once it feels like it's in a state where everything is more extreme like that, then it's going to, go into that sort of mentality, that mode to preserve that energy state.
Right. So the ideal thing to do after a prolonged calorie deficit is to come out of it slowly. That's the ideal thing to do. Now, here's the problem, and here's why binging is so common. It's the psychological piece of being in a deficit. When you're in a deficit for a long time, you are in essence tyrannizing yourself. In essence, you're saying to yourself, "No, you can't. You can't. All right, can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it." Then, when that date is up, and you don't just go back to normal. You rebel. It's like all this pent-up energy for all those weeks of tyranny where now you're at and you're like, I'm going fucking crazy. It's no different than those kids that, live in a super overprotective home, go off to college and fucking pass out every weekend and binge drink because they're just like, the reins are off. So, and this is true for most behaviors. So understand this, and here's the secret to this. The secret is when you go into your deficit, also have the understanding that you're going to come out of it slowly. Mm-hmm. That's the best strategy.
This is also the thing that I warn people about intermittent fasting, or fasting in general, because there's so much positive stuff around fasting, and where it's been a buzzword for the last 2 or 3 years. But the one thing you got to be careful of is, is that quickly canceled out if you fast for 24 to 40 hours and then you turn right back around the next day and you overconsume.
Flood it in,
and you binge.
In fact, it's actually
you fast too much.
There's a lot of people that find that alluring. Like, for example, and I think there's a book that's like the every other day diet.
No, there was a kick that people were on that was the fast for 5 days and then binge like crazy on the
and people love it.
What was that called?
There was a diet that was popular.
Stop, eat, or something like that.
And people love it. You know why they love it? Because it feeds right into this phenomena, this pathology of the psychology of how people eat. So at the end of the day, go into your deficit knowing you're going to come out slowly.
Yeah.
Next question is from Kohler Roman. Describe a typical day of eating. Not a perfect day, but a typical day from breakfast to your last meal.
So they want to know what we each, I'm assuming.
What we're each
at the moment
currently eating right now. Mine is way different, and it's been since we've had this show. Like I'm probably the most inconsistent for staying looking the same. Like mine always reflects what my training looks like, and I learned this quite some time ago as a trainer that you couldn't just eat the same way all the time. Like I had to learn to understand that I go through these phases. I go through phases of playing in a men's basketball league to rowing and swimming and into heavy into bodybuilding and training. And this is why too, I'm also really big on, these trackers where I can kind of keep an idea. And you'll see me. I'll be wearing the Oura Ring or the Fitbit, and I'll do it for a while, and I won't be. And really, why I like to do it, it's just to give me a little, bird's eye view of where I'm at, because I've been somewhere from the guy who only steps 2,000 to 4,000 steps a day and only trains 2 to 3 days a week, to the whole other side of the spectrum, where I'm doing 20,000 steps, training 7 days a week, heavy, intense lifting, to everything in the middle of that. And so as I go through those phases, I'm always manipulating and changing my diet. Right now, I'm for sure at the lowest volume of training. In fact, I think it's even been about six days since I lifted. We got back from a vacation. I didn't lift while I was out there. First day back, we were crazy with guests and busy yesterday, so I didn't train. We're getting ready to take off again today, so I may not train. So my volume of training extremely low right now. Now I'm still rowing or swimming on a very regular basis.
So you're still active.
Yeah, so I'm still active, but really that's low activity for me. To have a day or a week where maybe all I did was row 3 times in that week or swim 3 times a week is not a lot of activity. So my caloric intake is as low as like 2,500 on some days right now. And on a crazy high day, it would be maybe 3,500, which when I've been in my competing days, that would be a cutting. 3,500 would be cutting for a show. So I think what's important about, as we all go through and talk about kind of what we're eating right now, I think you have to understand that, right? Like, so it's not what I tell you right now. So, oh wow, Adam eats like this, I should. Well, no.
That's just right now,
right? It's just right now. So, yesterday. Yesterday I had 4 of the sous vide eggs from Starbucks.
You're making them a fortune right now with all those.
Yeah, I am. I'm eating those a lot right now. So that's a very typical day. So it's quick and easy for me. It's across the street, and if I didn't have time to make breakfast or whatever, and if I don't do that, a lot of times I fast till lunch right now. So there's many times where I don't have breakfast. I'm not fed right now. We're coming up on noon, so I'm not fed. So back to yesterday, I had the 4 sous vide eggs. Then I had Luna, which is our favorite,
Mexican restaurant.
Yeah, Mexican restaurant that is like everything's all organic and natural. It's their bowls are really good. So I get like a steak, black bean, and what else is in there?
Rice.
Oh yeah,
avocado.
Rice and avocado type of a bowl, and I get double meat in there. Anytime I eat out, I'm always double the meat, because most places only serve 4 to 6 ounces of meat, and if I'm only eating 2 or 3 times a day, I've got to get a double serving of protein just to even come close to my targets. My final meal in the evening was Katrina and I went to the fish restaurant, Fish Market, and I had about 16 ounces of sea bass with some veggies and red potatoes. And that was and then I had a smoothie box shake in the evening. So that's like a day for me right now. Pretty low calorie, eating out twice.
But you're maintaining. You're not gaining body fat.
I'm not gaining. I'm not getting fatter. I'm not. If anything, I'm probably losing a little bit of muscle because of the volume of training. I know that in order for me to maintain a good amount of muscle mass on my body, I need to be hitting training a lot. So I do notice that I'm losing some of my size. But again, it's not a priority right now, and I can switch it up any day.
Yeah. So for me, and again, this what Adam was saying about food intake matching activity and goals. I think that's kind of true for all of us. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm extremely consistent with resistance training. I almost never miss a workout, but my workouts are different. depending on what I'm doing for a particular time. At the moment, I've been ramping up my volume. I've been ramping up the intensity of my training. I've been going through this process now. It's been probably a 6-week process of doing so. And I'm at the point now where in some workouts, I'm doing as much as 50 or more sets in that whole workout. And these are full body workouts. So I'm hitting every body part and I'm doing 3 exercises per body part, typically 3 sets each on my longer workouts. So right now my volume is high. I'm training quite a bit. Those are 3 workouts a week. And then the days in between, I'll do. I walk almost every day. So Jessica and I will do a walk in the morning or at night, or I'll do like mobility and core work, which I've been also ramping up. So that's how I've been training so far, and I've been feeling really good. And so the way I've been feeding myself is to push muscle growth and push performance. So my calories have been higher. In fact, Justin was commenting on how thick I was looking recently, and I think it was thick around the middle. I think it was he was talking about.
No,
yeah, you were.
You're a big guy.
Yeah,
nice and secure, man.
Yeah, right. So I have put on
to take compliments.
I have put on a little bit more weight. Some of it's muscle, some of it's body fat.
You're more huggable, dude.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna keep going then.
Yeah.
So typical day right now. I'll do my workout in the morning, or sometimes I'll work out in the afternoon. Nonetheless, I'll have 8 to 10 egg yolks. I don't eat the white because egg whites tend to bother my stomach. So I'll eat egg yolks, 8 to 10, and I'll do them over easy, and I'll put them in a bowl of rice. This is a Japanese breakfast that I learned from Doug years ago. I think he told me about it. I thought that would be delicious. So I have a bowl of rice. In the bowl of rice is probably, if I were to measure it, I'd say probably 1.5 cups of cooked rice, maybe more, 8 to 10 egg yolks, and then I'll have a bowl of cooked vegetables. Later on in the day, I'll typically have another serving of rice or another form of starchy carbohydrate that doesn't have gluten in it usually. So it could be potato, it could be rice, it could be grits, it could be buckwheat, or it could be oatmeal. And then I'll have a decent serving of meat, depending on what we made the night before, so chicken or beef, and it's usually about 8 to 10 ounces worth. Sometimes I go more than that. And again, another serving of vegetables. Then I'll have a snack, and we have skinny dipped almonds here all the time, and I'll usually eat 1 bag of those a day because they're really delicious and the macros are pretty good. And then in the evening, I'll usually eat another serving of some kind of starchy carbohydrate, vegetables, and some kind of protein. Usually it's a red meat in the evening. So it could be bison meat, it could be steak, or lamb meat, usually in the evening. And occasionally I'll have fish. And that's kind of pretty much it. It's not a ton of calories, but it's relatively high calorie. But even though I'm lifting weights hard, the rest of the day I'm doing shit for activity. Like, we are sitting in a cave right now and we do not move. We don't even get sunlight in here. And so I can't push my calories too high because I'll just get fat because I'm just not moving that much. My metabolism is relatively fast because I've built a decent amount of muscle. So I'm still eating a decent amount of calories, but I know my activity is super low because, again, we come in here and we're sitting all day long, no sunlight, no nothing, which is not great for the circadian rhythm and all that stuff. But that's a typical day right now. And then if my gut goes off, like we were just on a trip with went on a trip with Justin, his family, and Doug and his family, and we ate garbage pretty much the entire time. I mean, it was like, it was burgers and Mexican food and tacos and chips and all that stuff. And what ends up happening is my gut will be a little off. I'll feel more inflamed and stiff in my joints, and I'll have to eat really good for like 2 or 3 days to get things back in balance. And sometimes I have to fast a little bit, not to make up for the calories, but just to give my gut a break so that it can get healthy again.
Yeah. I try and keep it really simple.
Just Dunkin' Donuts?
Just donuts and bacon.
Dunkin' Donuts, bacon, and cheese?
It's the Mind Pump Justin nutrition diet.
You're gonna give him a complex, Adam.
Butter,
Always
lots
make
of
those-
butter and cheese and bacon.
Because he hesitates. That's why it gives me an opportunity to insert something there.
Yeah, no, I love it, dude. This is the most boring, conversation ever. Just FYI, I don't give a shit about what you guys eat. But I have like scrambled eggs and bacon in the morning. I mean, if you really want to know, and I have some nitro coffee, and then around lunchtime, I mean, I'm pretty much I stick with more meat with vegetables until later. Like at night, I'll have carbs. I'll keep it to rice and potatoes typically because I'm trying to stay away from gluten, just because of that fact that I've figured out and pinpointed that it really does aggravate and accelerate my acid reflux. And it happens pretty immediately. So
it's crazy because I've seen you do it. You'll eat it, and then I'll see you popping Tums right afterwards.
I have to, and that's the annoying part for me is that I still have to keep that like on hand in my truck or like on me because I need it fucking sucks.
Yeah,
like, it's bad. So, I mean, I do like I'll add like you do with like skinny dip almonds. I'll do that like mainly. I'll throw some more like there before a workout, and I'll use that as a source sometimes along with like fruit or like some apples. You'll see me eating that with, and I'll bring you always laugh at my lunch because it's just like it's just like chicken breasts or like a steak.
Well, no, dude, it's because now that
and an apple.
Now that Courtney's at home, Justin comes into work
with a lunch pail.
A lunch pail.
Yeah.
Like a kid's lunch
like
pail.
a Transformers one.
Yeah, and then
it's Star Wars, bro.
It's Star Wars.
Oh, yeah, come on.
And then
he
he opens it, and it's like perfectly portioned. Like you could tell his wife made it for him, all cute and everything. Like, here's your little chicken breast.
And I dunk it in a little tiny thing of barbecue sauce.
Yeah, and she gives him a little reusable container of barbecue sauce.
Gluten-free, low sugar. Yeah.
Yeah, you're blessed. You're blessed.
I love it, dude. Yeah. I love having that. But, I mean, like just try and keep it as simple as possible. I mean, dinner for all the meat that we get from Butcher Box, like I'm trying to get through all of that half the time. And so I'm like trying to maybe lower my cadence with that. But it forces me to grill a lot of it up, and then we just use it in all kinds of different dishes. Most of my diversity just comes from vegetables. So I'll just throw, it's either like peppers, Brussels sprouts, asparagus,
you guys belong to that
broccoli,
that farm, right? Or whatever that delivers vegetables to your door.
It's a CSA, so that's where we get most of our produce, which I love it.
Idea.
Oh my god, it's funny because I look forward to it because it really makes me feel good. My body like really feels the benefits from those high nutrient vegetables. So
yeah, that's what I notice a lot too. Is if I eat vegetables 2 to 3 times a day, 2 to 3 servings of vegetables a day, I feel my best. Absolute my best. Because I'm not going to miss my protein. I always will eat my protein, and carbs will come and go. But if I miss my vegetables, I can tell. I can tell in my digestion, and then I can tell in my energy and how I just feel better.
Makes a big difference.
Yeah, and the other thing too is in terms of a typical day of eating, and you're hearing how we eat. The foods that we tend to eat, Justin and I in particular, and Adam pretty soon, it's kind of how our kids will eat as well, because those are the foods that we have in the house. And I don't know about you, Justin, but man, when we were on the trip and our kids were eating all that garbage.
Oh, they're maniacs when you saw them, dipping into cookies and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I let them enjoy it, and we have fun because I don't want to.
We're not trying to be freaking crazy about it.
No, but I don't know about you, but my kids aren't the same for like 2 days after. I could tell, they're not sleeping the same, they're not acting the same. There's a
little more fights happening.
Oh, I took my kids to the movies yesterday. My daughter's freaking out because I didn't buy her the biggest popcorn that they have, and I'm like, oh, it's crazy. It develops those. Why? Because we've had 3 days of eating garbage. Now she wants more garbage. So
totally,
it is very interesting. Wow. Anyhow, look, go to mindpumpfree.com and download our guides. They're all free and they're all extremely valuable. You can also find Adam, Justin, and myself on Instagram. We have our own personal pages. That's right. Justin's page is Mind Pump Justin, my page is Mind Pump Sal, and Adam is Mind Pump Adam.
Thank you for listening to Mind Pump. If your goal is to build and shape your body, dramatically improve your health and energy, and maximize your overall performance, check out our discounted RGB Super Bundle at mindpumpmedia.com. The RGB Super Bundle includes MAPS Anabolic, MAPS Performance, and MAPS Aesthetic, 9 months of phased expert exercise programming designed by Sal, Adam, and Justin to systematically transform the way your body looks, feels, and performs. With detailed workout blueprints and over 200 videos, the RGB Super Bundle is like having Sal, Adam, and Justin as your own personal trainers, but at a fraction of the price. The RGB Super Bundle has a full 30-day money-back guarantee, and you can get it now plus other valuable free resources at mindpumpmedia.com. If you enjoy this show, please share the love by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes and by introducing Mind Pump to your friends and family. We thank you for your support, and until next time, this is Mind Pump.